Nowadays, it feels like everyone is training to run a marathon, but do people really know what they are signing up for?
Hey, I'm Jack, an everyday runner hoping to help others learn a bit more about running. In today's video, I'm going to share a bit about what I learned training and running a marathon. Let's get into it. One of the first things I really learned was to not overthink running a marathon in the first place. Once I found out I was running the 2023 New York City Marathon, I began to research, and I began to research a lot. What the fastest racing shoes were, what gels were and how I needed to take them, even all the details about what the course would be like. A marathon was a completely foreign concept in my mind, and I wanted to piece the puzzle together. However, I didn't know how many pieces to the puzzle there were going to be. All the things from how much I needed to be running a week, what good pain was and what bad pain was, why I was getting so tired in the first place, what it was even like running a marathon, the list goes on. Like many first-time marathoners, I really had doubts as to whether or not I'd be able to finish the thing in the first place, despite ticking almost every session off of my training. As the weeks and months ticked by, I began to think more and more about the marathon, almost to a point where I began obsessing. From looking at the New York Roadrunners website to see how many days were left until the marathon, watching that course overview video about 1,000,000 times, what it was like to be in the starting village, a bunch of YouTube videos about people's own journeys towards the New York Marathon, and again, more about nutrition. It became a constant loop, constantly refreshing the New York Roadrunners page to see if any more information had been released. It was only really until the final training block where I really started trusting in the process. If I had done that right from the start, I would have saved myself a lot of stress. As I found out, there are a wealth of resources online about marathons, what works and what doesn't work for people, how to approach the New York Marathon, talking about the hill inclination and declines, the bridges. What I'm trying to say is it's not a one-size-fits-all approach to marathon training because we're all different. We all have different bodies, different running abilities, different running experiences, and our own individual journeys shape the way we get to the starting lines for marathons. While research can pay off, don't stress if you don't have all the answers when it comes to marathons and preparing for one. You will learn this as you go through your marathon training. If you've signed up or are currently training for a marathon, have faith in the training program and or coach that you have. This leads me to my next point. And the next point is nothing new on race day. Yes, I know you've probably heard this many times, but hey, it is true. In the lead up to your marathon, your training is the perfect grounds to test what nutrition and what gear you're going to use for it, from what works to what doesn't work. You can use your training runs as an opportunity to prepare and control as many different variables as possible before getting to that start line for your marathon. It's so tempting to go nuts at the marathon expos buying all the new gear and kit available on the market, but hey, resist that temptation and wear it after the race. You don't want any sudden chafing or weird feelings happening 10Ks, 15Ks, or even halfway into your marathon and ruining your day there. A key example I had during my own marathon journey was trialing different goo flavors to get me through towards my 30K long runs, finding that they'd actually upset my stomach when taking sips of Powerade or electrolyte mixes. This caused me in my final block of training to go back to my Morton gels that I was using, finding my stomach was much more accepting to that kind of fuel, so I prepared and utilized that for the New York City Marathon. Though also, quick side note, I did have troubles with Mortons in the early stages of marathon training, but we got over those, so my go-to at the moment is Morton's. Running a marathon is almost like a science experiment in a way, where you want to control as many variables as possible, testing to see what works and doesn't work until you get that formula right. Hence, the nothing new on race day tip. Next is your body is strong. Running a marathon taught me just how strong my body was, and even though I bonked at the 30-kilometer mark, was able to push forward and still walk and then run some more over to cross that finishing line in just under 4.5 hours. Your body also takes a mini beating during the marathon training process, from all the different runs on the cement, roads, and wherever you find yourself running, to getting up super early on barely any sleep, only to rinse and repeat that for many weeks and months over, and still getting up to complete those sessions. I didn't have any long distance running experience before running New York City Marathon, finding it hard even to run a 10-kilometer run, and in only just 6 months, managed to complete a full marathon. I'm now at a point in 2024 where I'm doing multiple 10-kilometer runs a week, and with relative ease too. So it just goes to show you how much improvement you can see if you stick to the course of your training. It's also incredible how much your body adapts to the training load usually seeing those incremental improvements over the course of your marathon journey. Hence why most marathon programs will see you up your mileage around 10% each week. If you're in the initial stages or have just started your marathon training, you may not feel like your body is strong enough or quite there just yet to run a marathon. It's also why most marathon programs are usually 16 weeks or longer, so you can have those small incremental improvements compound over time to get you ready and firing for the marathon. You also need to listen to your body too. You may be getting to a point in your marathon training where those niggles are starting to turn into a bit more soreness and may need to look to cross-training or even deep water running as a solution. One of my sister girls from the Indigenous Marathon Project squad was actually deep water running for 90% of her New York Marathon journey herself and managed to complete the marathon too. So it's a testament to show just how much of an impact deep water running can have and how beneficial it can be if you're injured. Next is that training can only get you so far. I trained with 9 other Deadly Squad members last year over a course of 6 months, only missing a handful of sessions due to small niggles that would pop up here and there. But with all this training under my belt, 30 kilometers was the furthest I'd run in my program, meaning I'd have 12 kilometers in the unknown during the New York City Marathon. Boy, did I learn the hard way in those final 12 kilometers, pretty much having to hobble my way towards the finish line. Particularly in your first marathon, I feel like it is more a matter of your willpower and your mindset. So even looking to have a mantra to repeat to yourself during a marathon can be very beneficial. Us members in the IMP squad last year had a 30-kilometer trial, and one of my mantras going into that was smile when the times were getting tough out there. And this was a mantra that I picked up from Eliud Kipchoge, who would smile when things were getting tough out there. And I mean, this fella is running a marathon in under 2 hours and with a smile on his face too. If I could go back in time to the New York City Marathon, I would definitely have that same mantra going into it to actually push me through those final 12Ks where all of my body was hurting and I just wanted to give up. To cross the finishing line at the New York City Marathon and be severely dehydrated to the point where I felt like a zombie was something I could never predict or train for during my training over the 6 months. But it also came as an important lesson on how vital it is to fuel yourself properly throughout the marathon to ensure you don't end up like me and dehydrated for the last 12 kilometers of the marathon, taking anything and everything on offer on the course. This was my key learning piece that I've now taken into my Ballarat marathon training. Lastly, in that support is crucial on your marathon journey. It often goes unnoticed, but those who were around me during my marathon journey were vital to my success and probably the reason I was able to cross that finishing line. Like my partner putting up with me for 6 months, getting up at 5 a.m. to complete my training sessions. But also, I was lucky enough to complete the New York City Marathon journey in a group, having my squad members and the Indigenous Marathon Foundation staff to support me through thick and thin, always there to support me if I ever had any doubts. This even included weekly check-ins with my coach to talk about how my training was going, as well as linking in with the squad throughout the year to check in. Even my friends who would join me on occasion as I set off for my long runs and put up with me talking about running almost 24/7. If you can, build a support network around you to keep you accountable for your marathon training. Even better, if you have a friend or two who are willing and keen to join you for your long runs, it will help take up some of that time. So there we have it. This is some of what running the New York City Marathon taught me last year. What's something running a marathon or training for run taught you? Let me know down in the comments below. If you're keen to watch more about my New York City Marathon journey, check out this playlist here. Or if you'd like, check out my latest upload on the channel here. I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch up.